Hi, guys. Today I want to talk about construction safety. You know, there's over 1,000 deaths per year in the construction industry, and there's over 174,000 injuries per year. Now, what can we do as contractors and builders or owners of houses that are being built, or commercial projects or industrial projects, or developers, or even legislators? What can we do to minimize or eliminate these numbers? Now, I'm going to get into a couple of examples and give my assessment on it and my opinion. So today's all about construction safety. Let's get started. Let me just say before we get into some of these examples that construction safety on these projects is very complex, and it's a continual education process. Now, I know with my superintendents and trade contractors, it's a daily and weekly process. And if we find safety violations or issues, which we do, we want to correct them at that time. Let's get into some of these examples that I have for you that I reviewed on the YouTube internet. Uh, of the 1,008 deaths that happened in 2020, 34% of them were because of falls. And on this project, you see it's in the framing stage of the house. He's got a 3-story house, and this is his entrance going into the house. He's got a 12-inch plank board going to a entrance walkway. That's his entrance to the house, and you can see here he's standing no more than 6 inches away from the edge of that walkway, which has no protection to it. And it's about a 10-foot drop there. And if you look here on his scaffolding system, he's got just a one-board scaffold system up. It's a jack system. You just jack it up, but there's no railing or any protection for the workers when they move up and down the scaffolding system. Here's another example that I'm going to show you. Entrance into a house is being framed again, and it looks pretty dangerous. He's got 2 2x4s across a 10-foot section, looks like, and it looks to be about a 10-foot drop there. Okay, very dangerous. As I said, 34% of the deaths in 2020 attributed to falls. And if you can prevent those deaths, what you should be looking for is some sort of railing system there, or some sort of ramp system. You know, build yourself a ramp and build yourself a railing system with a mid board, a top board, and a toe board, as you see. Or you can buy them, they're prefabricated, you can take them from job to job. See, here's another example. It's the trench excavations, one of the most dangerous part of construction. You see here 7 ways to dig an early grave. Now I'm going to read you some statistics. By the end of November of 2022, there had already been 35 workers died in trenching activities. And that's double the number in 2021. And from 2011 through 2018, 166 workers died in trench excavations. And as I read some of these trench excavation deaths on the internet, it's pretty much happened because of these items that he's bringing up here. 7 ways to dig an early grave. In number 1, this excavator, he's just too close to the edge here. And 2, the soil spoils are just too close. They're not 2 foot back. And 3, he's got a trench is deeper than 5 feet. And he's got no protection in this trench. No shoring or no trench box. He doesn't slope it back. 5, he has no hard hat on. 6, he's got a person here that's too close to the edge. And 7, he has no means of egress. And just going through some of these trench excavations that happened in the past couple of years, I've researched it on the internet. And one was a little close to where I am in Austin, Texas. Contractor in Georgetown, Texas. 2 workers died. And the trench was about 20 foot deep. There was no protection. And what I read was that They hired a temporary agency to send out two guys to do the work, and OSHA fined them. There was no supervision. It wasn't properly shored, and the trench was a 20-some foot deep. There was no egress on the trench, so it was just lack of experience for these excavators that were there, and they were fined over $250,000. And what I read on their internet site is they're developers of residential and commercial properties, and for some reason, I guess they didn't have an experienced excavating contractor on the project. Now, what's the proper things you should be doing? Well, in my projects, my trenches don't typically get past 5 feet, but you've got to know the soil conditions and what slope you need to do it if you're going to do a slope on it, if you have enough room to do slope on the trench, as you see here, the different types of soil, and that's somebody that's competent, that knows what they're looking at. If you have a tight area, then you need a trench box. Okay, it's typical of what you do, but this is pre-planning too. When you get with your trade contractor and you're setting up the job, making sure during your bid documents too that these guys, hey, what are we going to do here? You got a tight space, trench box. Okay. Shoring if you need be, as you see here. And here's another example of fall protection. A couple of his commercial contractors submitted some comments into this YouTube video, and you can see he's up about 20 feet. I think it's a residential contractor out of the Texas area, and a couple of the guys that submitted comments just were the same thing that I was kind of saying. You may want to look at some sort of harness protection, fall protection, something like this here on that. And I think the same thing here. We've got a contractor with a scaffolding system that he doesn't have any toe boards or railings or top boards or ladders or anything of that nature, and a couple of us submitted some comments on that just to try to help him out. And this is a proper scaffolding system. You see toe boards, railings, ladders. He's tied it off. Now, I believe there's a couple reasons why you see this more and more. And one of them is that in a lot of these states, and this is in the state of Texas here that I'm in now, you don't have to have a general contractor's license. Anybody can build a project. And in the state of Florida, where I was in the 80s, you had to have a general contractor's license. And it was a 4-hour test that I studied for 4 months, and you had to buy 10 books. And one of the books was an OSHA safety standard book. It taught you all the proper things that you needed to have to do on a project site for safety. And then I worked for a heavy industrial contractor. The safety was paramount. It was every day, it was every week. Every trade contractor came out on the job. We went over what the safety should be on that particular, phase of the work. When you don't know the standards for OSHA, then you don't follow through with them. And the second thing is during the pre-planning stage of the project, when you're buying out the contracts, you'll see that general contractors, and if you're a home builder and you want to build your own house, you're asking for a price from the framer. What is your price to frame up this particular work? And he's going to give you a square foot price, but he's not going to put any money in for fall protection. And that's up to you. The general contractor or the homeowner is building. You need to put in money for some sort of protection, railing system, access into the project, and have maintenance on that railing system. But that's a buyout system. That's a buyout thing. And you got to know what you have to be educated in that. Now, let me give you a few more statistics and assessment for this safety video. In 2020, there were 174,000 injuries and 1,008 fatalities in the construction industry. And of those injuries, it costs about $174 billion. or $42,000 average for health care and loss of income, and $5 billion for the fatality. Now, the construction industry, they only make up 6% of the total workforce in the United States. However, we contribute to 20% of the fatalities. So, in continuing this assessment and my opinion on the safety of the construction projects, I go back to the original question that I asked at the beginning of this video, is what can we do as builders and contractors, as developers, as owners of projects, of residential homes or commercial projects or institutional projects, or even legislators? What can we do to minimize these fatalities and construction accidents on these projects? And I was thinking that, see, the state of Texas, in a lot of these states, you don't have to have a contractor's license. You don't have to go through a contractor's license exam like I did in the state of Florida. And that, I think, would help in educating the contractors and the people to look at safety as paramount on these residential homes. And I was thinking not only safety in your contractor's exam, like we did in the state of Florida. They had us buy 10 to 12 books to study, and it was a 4-hour course I studied for 4 months. And as far as how hard it was on a scale of 1 to 10, if an engineering course that I took in college is a 10, this would have been about a 5. It's knowledge that you need to build a building correctly in the state of Florida because of the hurricanes and then some lack of quality control. That's what they did in the early 80s. They switched to this format of a contractor's license and a contractor's exam. And not only safety was part of that test, which I have here. Here's the book that we had to buy, and that could be a part of the contractor's exam here, or in the states that don't have it. You have safety manuals. And then there's new knowledge out there that we need to all be educated on. And the building science is one of them. In this book here, Moisture Control for Residential Buildings, and the same thing with commercial buildings too. You want to have moisture control because of what happened 20 plus years ago. We had, mold infestation and problems with the housing projects that mold remediation had to happen, and sickness and lawsuits. And so, this would be something that needs to be in a part of the learning of the contractor's test. And then have the passive house design and construction, and you have it in the commercial sector as far as a learning item that needs to be looked at for contractors and builders. And the passive house principles are that we want to be more energy efficient with better insulated homes and commercial projects, with better air conditioning systems and ventilation systems, so that we reduce the energy of that project and save money for you. Better insulation. And another topic would be the fortified homes that you'll see in hurricane and high wind states, in states with tornadoes. And the state of Alabama has it as a law, and it's a specification section that they have 35 pages that on the structure of the roofs and the substrate and the shingles. And the state of Texas has a bill in for it right now for the coastal counties, but it hasn't been approved yet. And another topic would be the building codes, the international building codes for the commercial and institutional projects, so that we as contractors know the codes as we're building it, so we're in compliance with them. And the same thing with the IRC, the International Residential Codes, that we're in compliance with these codes as we build the project as builders and contractors. And you could have a topic of engineering, design, and construction, so that you have the principles of constructing a building. And I just saw something on the internet where this gentleman's from the permit office. He's just explaining to the contractors the physics of beams for residential homes. So this is a topic that can be looked at. And then the topic of quality control for your projects. I know in the state of Florida, they implemented a threshold inspector for every building over 3 stories in height that was going to be built. They had to have an inspector out to inspect the reinforcing steel before the concrete was poured for that slab. And so this could be a part of something to learn, something to know. My other opinion and item of discussion would be that OSHA would get involved with the permit offices for these projects, for these houses or commercial projects, in that when you submit a set of plans and specifications to the permit office, you must also submit a safety policy for that project. And I've done many schools in Texas, and that's what we had to do with the school projects. We had to submit a safety policy for their approval, and then we had to have that safety policy on the project site when we did the building. And I'm thinking you do the same thing with the permit office. And I'm also thinking that the permit office either gets with OSHA and then they do a review of your safety policy of your project. Maybe the permit office is only and they say, okay, what is your methods of egress into your building? What are you going to do when you do at the framing stage? You're coming into your framing stage. I want to know what your plan of attack is. And you may say, well, we're going to build a railing system like this here, and you submit possibly a sketch for them to approve and stamp. And then when you call for an inspection, they come out for the framing stage and they look and they say, okay, you're in compliance of what you submitted as far as your safety railings and such. The same thing with fall protection on a roof. You submit your plans and specifications to the permit office, and then you submit a plan of what are you going to do on the roof. And then when you call for an inspection, this is what we're sending you. And he stamps that and he comes out and he looks. You have to have those plans and specifications on that project, plus the safety policy, plus your plan of attack in the different phases of construction, so that he can see the safety inspector and the permit inspector can see that you're in compliance. What are you going to do for fall protection on foundations? Trench excavations. What is your plan of attack for trench excavations? Are you going to put a trench box in? Are you going to slope the dirt back? What is your means of egress? You've submitted something, he stamped it, you have it on the job site, he comes out and he looks and he says, yeah, you're in compliance. Opinion on this safety issue is I did a commercial project here in Conroe for the Huntsman Chemical Corporation. It was plant work. And one of their requirements was that all of my workers had to go through a safety test. And we had to go down to the Houston Safety Council in Pasadena. And we had to take a 4-hour course, and it was a 20-question exam at the end. And everybody had to pass that, and everybody got a safety card that was on that project site. And I was thinking the same thing for, the overall commercial and residential projects, that maybe we look at, some sort of safety card system where the people on the projects have to go through some sort of training, and then they get a safety card, and then they have it in their possession on the site when the permit office comes out or the OSHA inspector comes out. And now we have everyone on that project site that's gone through some sort of safety course. Now, it was kind of a little bit of a pain to have the guys go down to Pasadena. They had to take a day off to do the course. Maybe we can do it on the internet, something like that. So that's my assessment and opinions on the safety issues we have in the construction industry, and you can tie it with the contractor's license. And it's just what I've seen in my 40 years in the construction industry. So I hope it's out there for discussion. And I wish the best for your next project. I hope it's a safe one and a successful one. And I thank you.
Success. Success. Success.